Welcome to the Charles Vanhorn Show. If you are following me on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on my latest and greatest conversations on race, religion, and politics. You can also follow me on Facebook, as well as my Facebook group, Race, Religion, and Politics. Some people ask me after the election, what are you and your friends going to talk about now that Donald Trump is no longer president? I said, we will continue to hold Joe Biden and his administration accountable for all of their promises made and promises not kept. Because my podcast is not about being loyal to one group or one party. We're actually looking for elected officials to be there and to keep their word for the people that they represent. So if you have been elected by the people of your city, your state, your district, then you need to represent those people. Because I am simply one man speaking my truth. But my truth might conflict with your truth, and your truth undoubtedly might conflict with mine. But it is the path we all must travel while we attempt to discover our truth. And so there will be no leniency given to Joe Biden and Vice President Harris just because they are Democrats. They will have to give an account for what they have done and have not done while office holders. An old proverb says, a lie travels around the globe while the truth is still putting on its shoes. I'm quite amazed that politicians get away with so much lying that they do. They promise people that they're going to be transparent. They promise the people that they represent that they're going to faithfully execute the duties of that office. And when they get into the office, they sell out the people that they are supposed to represent. I find out that there are so many factions, and there are so many divisions, and there are so many questions when it comes to race in America. And it all comes really down to skin color. How can skin color cause a nation to be so divided? How can a complexion cause a nation to rip itself apart? And when you try to have a conversation about race, people said, there you go playing the race card. And I can understand people who really don't want to address race, and they really don't want to face the dilemma that we are a racist society. And it's really in the facts. If you look at it, everything benefits one race of people in this country. Most people say, well, we're not racist because we're humans and it's all about the human race. Well, then let's say the caste system. This particular people of a certain tribe must stay in this place, and these people of this particular tribe must stay in that place. It is still all about putting people in a place where one group of people feel superior than another. And so I see it, I really boil it down to this. It's really about hate. Because you have a group of people who lives for nothing else other than to hate. And they really believe in their heart that they are the superior race. They believe that they are superior to any other nationality of people on the planet. And that's just an asinine way of perpetuating a bigoted mindset. Because really, we all came from the same bloodline. We're all part of a human race. We're not might say guinea pigs, or we're not horses and we're not cows, so we're of a different classification. We are Homo sapiens. And many times you have people of other nationalities who view themselves as being superior in mind, superior in brain, superior in strength, intellect. They sometimes forget that we all are part of the Homo sapien classification. We're human. So I see it really as hate, those people that they detest. You have one group of people in this country who believe that they deserve all the rights and privileges afforded to them by their ancestors and the Constitution, but deny you the same rights and privileges if you are of a different skin complexion. In my studies, I have found that religion, government, and people in positions of power, they perpetuate the endless cycle of pain and suffering throughout the world. Let me let you in on a little secret. Bringing suffering to different populations, populated areas, I would say, on the planet that are actually made up of dark-skinned people is really something that the Europeans are good at. And when I say Europeans, I mean those of the white complex, white skin complexion. If you notice, they're always dropping bombs on the people that are in Islamic states, people of darker skin complexion. You always hear the United States dropping bombs on those people. You hear the Allies dropping bombs on those people. And let me tell you, a lot of innocent people are killed when those armaments find their target. There are a lot of innocent people who are killed when we go after terrorists, people we classify as terrorists. And I have found that suffering, causing pain, is a billion or trillion-dollar industry. You have the military involved, you have politicians involved, and you have people trying to balance the power scales, the global scales, keeping one group of people from having weapons while allowing another group to have weapons, pitting one group against another, and making sure that there is a constant turmoil happening throughout the world. And this can be very beneficial for those in power, because when you start to dissect it, when you start to look at it, you then understand that someone is profiting on the cycle of pain and the cycle of suffering that is being brought to bear on those of a different skin complexion. And you find out that these cancers are deep. These ideologies are deep. This hatred is very deep. This mistrust is deep. And some of it goes back hundreds of years. Some of this mistrust goes back to governments, our government, toppling other governments and causing the distrust and the anger and the angst that has happened throughout the Middle East. And I want you to understand that the deeper you go, you will find out that it is rooted deeply within the human experience. If you want to look biblical at it, you can see Cain killing Abel. Brothers. You could look at world leaders shaking hands one moment and plotting a military exercise the next. Let's look at suffering for a moment. There are different levels of hell when it comes to the pain from suffering. If we look at people suffering throughout the world because of different issues, we find that there are health issues, there are mental issues, and other maladies that people suffer from. And they never receive a panacea for the problem because usually a pill is given when really a discussion is needed. And then we then start to look farther down this endless abyss to pretty much bring it to one point, one subject. Pain and suffering continues because there is profit that can be made from it. Because if you're suffering, either you can afford the pill and receive relief, or you're too broke. You don't have any money. You don't have any worth to bargain with. So you must endure and suffer with the pain. And usually a lot of people who are suffering die from the pain. They either die of health issues, mental issues, or suicide. Because the problem becomes so big that they don't see a way out of it. And the only way out is usually that one that ends in tragedy. This is equally the same, no matter if it's a drug problem, a sex trafficking ring, corrupt business practice, corrupt governments. It really doesn't matter about the vice. The answer is pretty much the same. If there is profit to be made, then, people are really not going to come down on it. If there's profit to be made from the vice, and someone's palm can be greased, then that vice will continue. If you look at religion, churches, synagogues, mosques, and really all places of worship that are supposed to be there to help the people, you will find out that throughout the history there have been some type of cover-up. Whether it's sexual, monetary, having to deal with this ism, that ism, something happened that the place that was supposed to help was the place that caused a lot of hurt. Usually, places of worship are there to help the people. They're similar to hospitals, which are there to help the sick. Neither institution, a hospital or a church, can function without a profit being made from those whom it serves. You know that I'm right about that. A church needs tithes and offerings or some other financial stimulus or donation. Hospital needs insurance money and co-pays and government subsidies to survive. Each institution, is profiting from the pain of the people. One profits because the masses are novices when it comes to learning about God or goddesses or the hereafter or the now. They're novices because they can't do it for themselves, when it's really quite simple. As an agnostic, no one really knows the answer, I say. No one that is alive have went to the other side, if there is another side, and have come back and say, yeah, I've discovered what happens. There is a great God sitting on a white throne waiting to judge us. No one knows the answer. It's all about what a person can get a few thousand people to believe. And when that few thousand people start believing, then you can get 1 million people to start believing. You get 1 million people to start believing, then you have yourself a good cult there. So what people try to tell you about God or about the hereafter is really unknowable. I think the Bible even says, prove all things. And a lot of things that people are going about trying to prove can't be proven. Some things are just unknowable. Science is still trying to figure out the understanding of and to come to grips with black holes and spaces within our solar systems that shouldn't be there. So it's all really boiling down to learning and broadening our mindset. So if you feel comfortable following a teacher or a pastor or whoever it is that you put your faith in, that's because the preacher or the pastor is able to give hope to you by convincing you that there is something and someone greater than yourself, and that you are not alone in the universe. Because as people, people being as gullible as they are, they really need to believe that their lives have meaning. They need to believe that the life that they're living has a greater meaning. So preachers are able to convince you that God has a purpose and a plan for your life, and you need to try to find out what that purpose and that plan is for your life. And they tell you the only way you can do it is by reading the good book. Read the Bible, and God will show you through the scriptures how to have purpose and meaning for your life. Doctors convince their patients that they will help them find a solution to their problem, to their incurable problem. And they tell their patients that you must have trust in me. So people trust their physicians. They trust that their physicians are not there to profit off of their misery. And they believe that their physicians are there to do everything to get them feeling better and in a more perfect state of health. Don't get me wrong. There are some good doctors and there are some good teachers and good pastors and good politicians who are actually doing a spectacular job when it comes to helping their followers, their patients, their constituents. But also on the spectrum, there are many who are there to simply profit from the misery and the ignorance of others. Our society really is a capitalistic society. Every action is simply a transaction, and every encounter is a possible sale. We look for an opportunity to capitalize on the ignorance or the misfortune of another person in order to profit from their demise. If you are in a financial strait and you decide that, hey, I need a loan to help, bridge the gap, get me to the next year so that I can actually breathe a little easier. So if you apply for that loan, you pay the original amount, plus you pay interest. And if it's for an extended period of time, you must factor in the compound interest as well. And don't get me talking about late fees. If you're late, you're going to have some late fees. If, for God's sake, you bounce a check, or if it returns, you're going to have some return charges, return check, or insufficient fund charges that you must pay. So you must experience pain because the lender must be compensated for assisting you and giving you a loan to obtain the relief that you were seeking. Now, a lot of people said, Charles, how are you going to hold the Biden administration accountable during your podcast? Well, the same way that I held President Obama and his administration accountable. I'm looking at Joe Biden and I'm looking at all politicians as people who are there simply to try and convince the masses that they are doing something in their favor. I think that Joe Biden has done more in his short time to try to address some of the inequalities in our society, but I don't think that he has all of the answers. I see where the Democrats passed the COVID-19 relief bill. They had to do a little arm twisting behind the scenes, I believe, with Joe Manchin to get him to go along. I see also that President Biden, he just signed a protection for voting rights. This is not really something that is permanent because a law would have to be passed in order to do that. And I believe that the Supreme Court pretty much gutted the Civil Rights Act a few years ago, and that's why states are so gung-ho right now about passing all of these different laws to restrict voting. So there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot that must be done, because when the people decide that they have had enough and they rise up, then the people who are in power becomes afraid. And there is nothing like a population or a mass of people that have become awakened, a mass of people who are no longer asleep, a mass of people who are demanding, not asking for, but demanding change. So when this happens, you have those who are the 10%, who owns 98% of the wealth in America. They began to get a little nervous. They began to say we must put these sheep back in their place. Even if that means we must pass some type of terrible law to suppress or oppress them, we will do that. So if we have to suppress them by limiting their voice, we will do that. If we have to pass laws that will keep them from being able to vote, restrict their voting abilities, we will do that. We will think of any way possible to retain power because we're afraid of what would happen if these people gain power and do to us what we have done to them. That's the fear. It's not so much the fear of Black people or Hispanic people or Asian people being in power. It's what would happen if they get in power and decide that they would do to the majority what the majority has done to the minority. That's what really happens. These people in power are afraid of losing control and having to account for their actions. So all we have in this country is a system that is supposed to check each other, a system of checks and balances. It really doesn't work that way. One part of the system is really not checking the other. One part of the system is out of whack. You have the legislative part of the branch, the executive, and the judicial. All of these are supposed to be checking one another with judges in place and with all of the senators and the representatives in the House. They're supposed to be in check, like a checking system. This thing is broken because they are so angry with each other that they can't even compromise with each other. It's such crazy times in America that people who voted just a few years ago because of the pandemic for vote by mail now says that it is illegal. And they're voting now, passing laws saying that voting by mail is unconstitutional. These people are just angry. And they're very, very evil. Because if they see that one part of the population is starting to rise, it causes fear to spread among them. It causes them to believe that, hey, this population now is moving in a majority status. And if they become the majority, they're never going to, they never will vote for us. So we must do something to curtail that. So the best thing we can do is to say that anyone who came here and crossed the border for any type of political refuge, we must say that they are illegal immigrants. It doesn't really matter why they crossed it. Just classify them all as illegal. When the country is supposed to be made up of immigrants. This whole country is nothing but a country of immigrants. But now immigrants in power are saying that these other immigrants who are now applying should no longer be afforded the same privilege that their ancestors were afforded. You see how the tables turn once people taste power, and once people get into positions of power, they deny that same right. They deny that same benefit to others, and you start to see the ugly side of human behavior. So for just a moment, I actually wanted to just bring your attention in and let you understand that no matter what you're doing, there is limits to what you're able to do in this country. You can be the greatest business person, the greatest business intellectual there is. There will still be limits to how far you go. You will always bump up against someone else who has a little more power, a little more authority than you. And if you start to rock the boat too much, you might find out that you are pushing up against some powerful movers and shakers in this game we call the United States of America, the capitalistic society. So there's not much that Biden can do as the president. He's just one part of the power structure. You have very powerful politicians, senators. You have a powerful military. You have a powerful House of Representatives. You have powerful members jockeying for position. So there's limits to what Biden and his administration can do. What I must ask of you, and I must throw the ball now in your court, what is it that you're able to do for yourself? Do something for you and your family that you can benefit from. Do something to protect those who are important to you. Look after the well-being of you and yours. Because as I see things unfolding right now, there's not enough love in the world. There's not enough love for our fellow man. There is not enough compassion for one another. We look at people who are suffering and we pass by and say that does not concern me. So I know that I'm now out of time, but I would like us all to just take a personal evaluation and look at how you can become a better person. It won't happen overnight. It may take years, but each day you should strive to be a better person than you were on yesterday, on today, and become a more godlike example for others to follow. Once again, thank you for being a part of the Charles Vanhorn Show. Continue to go out, continue to fight for equality, continue to fight for justice, and continue to fight for those who are voiceless and cannot speak for themselves. Be careful and be safe.